ever go camping thinking it'll just be a weekend of fresh air, quiet nights, and maybe a few beers with friends, only to wake up realizing something is wrong? What I'm about to share isn't just campfire gossip. These are real stories, moments where ordinary trips into the woods turned into something unforgettable and terrifying. This story begins during spring break of my junior year of college. At the time, I thought it would be just another one of those carefree trips with my closest friends, Marcus, Jenna, and Eli. We'd been doing these camping excursions since freshman year, each one a little different, each one a little more adventurous. But this time, things were different. We were broke. Tuition, rent, and the usual college chaos had drained us. So instead of paying for a proper campground, we decided on dispersed camping. Free sites tucked deep into the wilderness, far from crowds, far from rules. I found the spot on one of those camping apps. It looked promising, a clearing outside Buena Vista, Colorado, hidden off a Forest Service road that seemed to stretch endlessly into the trees. The reviews were vague, almost too vague, but that only added to the allure. We arrived late afternoon. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky in streaks of orange and violet. The clearing was near what looked like an old creek bed, long dried up, its stones bleached and cracked. You could tell water had once carved through here, but now it was silent. The silence was the first thing I noticed. No other campers, no tire tracks, no voices, just us. It was the kind of isolation that felt perfect at first, until later, when it didn't. We set up our tents in a loose cluster, maybe 15 feet apart. Nothing fancy, just wherever the ground looked flat enough. Jenna fussed about rocks under her tent. Eli joked about bears. Marcus cracked open a beer before the sun had even set. That night was simple. We sat around, played cards, drank cheap beer, laughed about old stories. The kind of night that feels ordinary until you realize later it was the last ordinary night you'd ever have. By 11, we were exhausted. The drive had worn us out. We crawled into our tents, zipped ourselves in, and let the forest swallow us. Here's the thing. I'm a light sleeper. At home, I wake up 3-4 times a night. That night, I was out, like I'd been drugged. My sleep was heavy, dreamless, unnatural. When I woke up the next morning, something felt wrong immediately. I unzipped my tent, stepped out, and froze. All 4 of our tents had been moved. Not knocked around by animals, not shifted by wind, actually relocated. They were arranged in a perfect square around a pile of stones that hadn't been there before. Each tent had been shifted 20 to 30 feet, but the stakes were still perfectly in the ground. Inside, nothing was touched. My phone was still charging, my sleeping bag exactly how I left it, nothing missing. I yelled for my friends. Marcus came out first, his face pale. Jenna followed, then Eli. None of us remembered anything. But then, Jenna said she had a vivid dream walking in a line through a desert while someone counted her steps. Marcus said he dreamed about marching in the army. Eli and I didn't dream at all. The vibe between us was strange, almost like we were connected, but in a bad way. The best way I can describe it, it felt like there was a 5th person among us, watching, but also somehow part of us. We looked closer. Drag marks in the dirt showed where the tents had been pulled, but they stopped about 10 feet short, like someone had lifted them the rest of the way. And the stones? Exactly 4, stacked neatly like a sculpture. Marcus leaned in to examine them, tripped, and knocked the pile over. The stones scattered, and then it happened. A low rumbling sound echoed from the distance, like rocks grinding together. Not an earthquake, more like a massive stone door being forced open. We panicked. No words, just instinct. We packed in silence, all of us moving in sync, like we could feel each other's fear. I've never packed a campsite so fast. 5 minutes, maybe less, and we were gone.
After that first morning, none of us could shake the feeling that something was wrong. The tents, the stones, the dreams. It wasn't just weird, it was unnatural. We tried to laugh it off. Marcus joked that maybe we'd all sleepwalked. Jenna suggested some prankster had found us and decided to mess with our stuff. Eli said it was probably just forest magic, but none of us believed our own excuses. The silence of the forest pressed in heavier than before. Every sound, a bird call, a branch snapping, felt amplified. And underneath it all, there was this hum, not audible exactly, but felt, like the ground itself was vibrating at a frequency too low to hear. We decided to stay one more night. Maybe it was stubbornness, maybe denial. We didn't want to admit we were scared. That evening, we built a bigger fire, trying to push back the darkness. Jenna kept glancing at the stone pile, now scattered across the dirt. Marcus avoided looking at it altogether. Eli tried to act normal, but his hands shook when he held his beer. Around midnight, we turned in. I lay awake longer than usual, listening. The forest was too quiet. No wind, no rustling, no animals, just silence. And then, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, circling the tents. I held my breath. My instinct was to unzip the tent, shine my flashlight, but something in me screamed not to. Instead, I stayed frozen, listening. The footsteps stopped, and then, in the distance, a sound like counting. A voice, low and steady, counting numbers in a language I didn't recognize. I must have blacked out because the next thing I remember was morning. When we stepped outside, the stone pile was back, rebuilt, perfectly stacked. None of us had touched it. Marcus swore under his breath. Jenna started crying. Eli just stared at it, pale as a ghost. We checked the ground, more drag marks. This time, not just from the tents, from the fire pit. It had been shifted 3 feet to the left. The ashes inside were cold, undisturbed, like it had been lifted, whole. That's when Marcus snapped. He said we were leaving, no arguments. Jenna agreed instantly. Eli hesitated, but when he looked at me, he saw the fear in my eyes and nodded. We packed again, faster than before. But as we loaded the car, I noticed something carved into one of the stones. A symbol. 3 vertical lines, crossed by a single horizontal slash. It wasn't there yesterday. I didn't tell the others. We drove out, the forest road stretching endlessly. None of us spoke. The silence in the car was heavier than the silence in the woods. After an hour, Marcus pulled over. He said he couldn't shake the feeling we were being followed. Jenna begged him not to stop, but he insisted. We got out, looked around, nothing. Just trees. After Marcus disappeared, everything changed. The trip was no longer about camping, no longer about fun. It was about survival. Jenna was inconsolable. She kept pacing the motel room, muttering that Marcus wouldn't just leave us. Eli tried to reason with her, but his voice cracked every time he spoke. I stayed quiet because deep down, I agreed with her. Marcus hadn't left. He'd been taken. We checked out of the motel that morning, too shaken to stay. The clerk gave us a strange look when we asked about Marcus again, like he knew more than he was saying. But when pressed, he just shrugged. We drove aimlessly, trying to decide what to do. Go home, call the police, pretend nothing happened. None of the options felt real. That's when we saw him. A man, standing on the side of the road, thumb out like a hitchhiker. He was tall, maybe 30, with piercing eyes that locked onto us as we approached. Eli slowed the car. Jenna screamed at him not to stop, but the man stepped into the road, forcing us to. He leaned down to the window, smiled, and said, "You should move your tent." The exact words from the napkin. My blood ran cold. Eli floored it, swerving around him. In the rearview mirror, I saw him standing there, smiling, watching us drive away. We ended up at another campground, miles away. It wasn't ideal, but we were exhausted. We set up quickly, trying to convince ourselves we'd left the nightmare behind. But the forest had other plans. That night, I woke to voices again. Not just one or two, dozens. Whispering, chanting, surrounding us. I unzipped the tent, flashlight in hand, and there they were. Figures, half hidden in the trees, not moving, not speaking, just watching. I counted at least 10. Their faces were obscured, but their eyes glowed faintly in the firelight. I froze. My instinct screamed to wake the others, but before I could, the whispers stopped. The figures melted back into the woods, vanishing as if they'd never been there. I zipped the tent shut, heart pounding, and lay awake until dawn. The next morning, Jenna found something outside her tent. A notebook, old, weathered, its pages filled with tally marks, hundreds of them, all grouped in 7s. The last page had 42 groups, over 8 months. It was the same notebook I'd seen in the abandoned tent days earlier, but now it was here, at our campsite. Eli wanted to burn it. Jenna wanted to keep it. I wanted to throw it into the creek. We argued until we realized something terrifying. The tally marks weren't random. They matched the number of days since Marcus had disappeared. That night, we didn't sleep. We sat by the fire, waiting. And sure enough, they came back. The figures. This time, closer. We could see their faces, pale, expressionless, eyes wide open and unblinking. One of them stepped forward, placed a stone at the edge of the fire, and whispered, "Count." Then, they all vanished. But then Eli pointed. On the side of the road, half hidden in the brush, was another stone pile. Same formation, same symbol carved on the top stone. It was impossible. We hadn't seen anyone. No cars, no campers, yet somehow the stones were here, waiting. Marcus cursed, slammed the car door, and drove off. That night we checked into a cheap motel. None of us wanted to camp again. We thought maybe we'd left it behind. But when I woke at 3 a.m., I saw something that froze my blood. On the nightstand, next to my phone, was a napkin, folded. On it, written in shaky handwriting, "You should move your tent." The next morning, Marcus was gone. His bed was empty, his bag missing, no note, no explanation. Jenna panicked. Eli tried to calm her, but his voice shook. We searched the motel, the parking lot, the nearby streets. Nothing. When we asked the front desk, the clerk said Marcus had checked out at dawn, alone. We never saw him again.
We were broken. Marcus was gone. The notebook kept appearing. The figures in the woods were no longer hiding, and the whispers, the counting, had become constant. We knew we couldn't just keep running. Something was pulling us deeper, whether we wanted it or not. Eli suggested we go back to the original clearing, back to where it started. Jenna screamed at him, said he was insane, but I understood. If we didn't face it, it would follow us forever. So we drove, hours back into the mountains, down the endless Forest Service road. When we arrived, the clearing looked exactly the same. The dried creek bed, the silence, the stone pile rebuilt, waiting. But this time, there were more stones. Not 4, 7. Stacked higher, balanced impossibly, like they were defying gravity. We set up camp again, though none of us wanted to. The air was heavy, charged, like before a storm. That night, we sat in silence around the fire. No cards, no laughter, just waiting. And then we felt it, the fifth presence, not seen, not heard, but felt, like someone was sitting with us, inside us. Jenna whispered, "It's here." Eli nodded, eyes wide. I didn't speak, because I knew she was right. At midnight, the figures returned, dozens of them, surrounding the clearing. They didn't move closer, they didn't speak, until one stepped forward. A woman, pale, eyes black as stone. She pointed to the pile of rocks and said one word, "Count." Jenna screamed. Eli grabbed my arm. I couldn't move. The woman repeated it, louder, "Count." And then all of them joined in, voices rising, chanting, counting in unison. 1, 2, 3, 4. The sound shook the ground, rattled the trees, filled the air with vibration. We covered our ears, but it didn't matter. The sound was inside us. The stones began to move, not fall, move. They lifted, hovered, spun in the air. The pile grew taller, stones stacking themselves, forming a column that reached toward the sky. And then it split. The ground beneath us cracked open. A doorway. Stone grinding against stone just like before. The figures stopped chanting. Silence fell. The woman pointed at us. "You belong." Eli bolted. He ran into the woods screaming. Jenna collapsed, sobbing. I stood frozen, staring at the doorway. Inside, darkness, endless, swallowing. And then, Marcus, standing in the doorway. His face pale, eyes empty, but it was him. He whispered, "Count." I grabbed Jenna, pulled her to her feet. We ran, through the trees, down the road into the night. The chanting rose behind us, louder, faster, numbers spilling into the air like thunder. We didn't stop until we reached the car. We drove, headlights cutting through the dark, hearts pounding. In the rearview mirror, I saw them, the figures, standing at the edge of the road, watching Marcus. We never saw Eli again. Jenna refuses to talk about it. I try not to think about it, but sometimes, late at night, I hear it. The counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I know it's not over. Because once you've been marked, once you've been part of the ritual, you don't escape. You just count.
Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.